Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show for another deep dive.
Oh, I love these deep dives.
All right, well, get ready for this one, because today we're going to be looking at
Okay.
what a world could look like if, if the U.S. had gone
Oh, okay.
very specific direction.
Politically.
It's like something out of a political thriller.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So just imagine a world where the U.S. president, just disregards court orders,
What?
cancels elections, and even, jails journalists.
Oh my gosh.
It sounds pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it does.
Like something out of a dystopian novel.
Yeah, for sure.
But this is the potential reality that's explored
Oh, wow.
in Bruce Wolpe's book, What Trump's Second Term Means for Australia,
Okay.
published in 2025.
All right.
So in this book,
Yeah.
he analyzes what a Trump win in 2024 could mean,
Okay.
particularly for Australia.
All right. So
Yeah.
focusing on Australia.
Yeah, so we'll be looking at his policies, his personality,
Okay.
and the potential threats to democracy in both nations.
That's a...
It is a lot.
Okay.
So we're going to be asking some pretty deep questions today.
Okay, shoot.
Like, how would this impact the U.S.-Australia alliance?
Right.
How would Australia navigate a world
Yeah.
where America has kind of retreated from global leadership?
That's a big one.
It is.
Yeah.
And so we're going to unpack all of this and more with expert speaker.
Let's get into it.
All right, so let's start with the cornerstone of Trump's vision,
Okay.
his America First policy.
Right.
Wolpe breaks it down
Yeah.
into 4 pillars:
Okay.
nativism, protectionism,
Oh, guys.
isolationism,
Okay.
and nationalism.
So those are the 4 pillars
Those are the 4 pillars.
of America First.
Yes, and it's not just theoretical.
Okay.
This has real-world consequences
Right.
for global trade, international relations,
Yeah.
and especially for Australia's economic future.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
going to directly impact Australia.
Example,
Whoa.
Wolpe highlights Trump's aim to economically decouple from China, to exert pressure.
Okay, so almost like a punishment or
Yeah, exactly.
using the economy as leverage.
Yeah. And just imagine Australia stuck in the middle of that economic tug-of-war
Oh, gosh, no.
between the U.S. and China.
That'd be tough, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a tricky situation.
Definitely.
And speaking of tricky,
Okay.
let's move on to Trump himself.
All right.
Wolpe doesn't shy away from analyzing
Uh,
his personality and governing style,
okay.
which can be, shall we say,
Yes.
unpredictable.
A little bit, yeah.
We're talking impulsive decisions,
Yeah.
disregard for democratic norms,
Oh, wow.
and behavior that kept the world guessing.
yeah. Like, what's he going to do next?
Exactly.
You never know.
And the book even shares an anecdote about General Mark Milley
Okay.
reassuring his Chinese counterpart
Okay.
that the U.S. wouldn't suddenly invade
Oh, my.
during the transition from Trump to Biden.
Wow.
Yeah. It really highlights the level of uncertainty
Oh.
surrounding Trump's actions.
Yeah. Yeah, no one knew it was going to happen.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it makes you wonder
Yeah.
about the impact on the U.S.-Australia alliance.
Right.
Could our differing values and foreign policy approaches lead to friction?
It's a possibility.
It is.
Yeah.
And Wolpe suggests that the alliance could be strained,
Okay.
particularly given Trump's tendency to prioritize personal relationships
Right.
with autocratic leaders over democratic allies.
Okay, so putting those relationships first.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And, his close relationship with Putin, including that secret conversation with no official record,
Oh, wow.
definitely raises concerns about potential leverage
Right.
and hidden agendas.
So what's really going on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It raises serious questions about his loyalties and motivations on the world stage.
Yeah, you can't really know.
Exactly.
For sure.
But it's not just about Trump's impact on the U.S.
Right.
Wolpe points out a parallel rise of populist,
Okay.
anti-establishment sentiment, and divisive rhetoric right here in Australia.
Oh, interesting. So a mirroring
Yeah,
of
this,
what's happening in the U.S.
And remember Scott Morrison's "Don't be afraid,
Oh, yeah.
don't be scared"
Yeah.
statement about coal.
Yeah.
It demonstrates how Trump's pro-carbon energy stance
Yeah.
resonated with some segments
Okay.
of Australian politics.
Interesting.
It makes you think, how much did Trump embolden
Right.
similar forces within our own political landscape?
Yeah, and how much of that is still
Exactly.
today?
It raises concerns about the direction of our own political discourse.
Yeah, it makes you think.
It does.
For sure.
Now let's shift gears
Okay.
and talk about the erosion of democratic norms in both countries.
Right.
Wolpe analyzes voter suppression attacks on the media
Okay.
and the spread of misinformation,
Right.
which could intensify
Yeah.
under a second Trump term.
It's like he's laying the groundwork for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore the January 6th Capitol attack
Oh, right.
and Trump's attempts to overturn
Yeah.
the 2020 election results.
That was a scary time.
It was. It was a direct assault on the democratic process.
Yeah, it really was.
While Australia's system is different,
Okay.
we need to be vigilant against any erosion
Right.
of our own democratic principles.
Totally. It can happen anywhere.
It can.
Yeah.
It's a sobering reminder that democracy is fragile
It is.
and requires constant protection.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of protection,
Okay.
the media plays a vital role.
Right.
Wolpe dives into social media's impact
Okay.
on political discourse and its potential to spread misinformation,
Yeah,
something Trump himself weaponized.
for sure.
It's like a page out of the Nixon playbook, really.
Oh, wow.
Remember when Trump labeled the media
Yeah.
the enemy of the people?
It's scary how those things
Yeah.
come back around.
It's chilling how history can repeat itself
Yeah.
and how rhetoric like that erodes trust
Absolutely.
in vital institutions.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a virus spreading distrust and division.
Definitely.
Now, before we get too gloomy,
Okay.
let's look at some potential solutions.
All right. I like that.
Wolpe suggests that Australia can navigate this uncertain future
Okay.
by strengthening regional alliances and promoting democracy
Okay.
to counter a potential U.S. withdrawal
Right.
from the global stage.
So making up for that abscess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He highlights Foreign Minister Penny Wong's strategy
Okay.
of increased engagement across the Asia-Pacific
Uh-huh.
and building stronger partnerships to hedge against U.S. retreat.
Okay, so kind of like diversifying our portfolio of
Yeah.
relationships.
It's a proactive approach, recognizing that Australia can't just sit back and wait.
Right? We got to take charge.
Exactly. We got to be
Yeah.
proactive.
Yeah.
Now let's switch gears
Okay.
and look at how a second Trump term might impact social issues,
All right.
starting with race relations.
Okay.
It's crucial to acknowledge the different contexts. The U.S. has a long and complex history of racial inequality,
Yes.
rooted in slavery and systemic discrimination.
Yeah.
Australia, while not immune,
Right.
has its own challenges, particularly with Indigenous rights.
Okay.
Wolpe draws a parallel between the Black Lives Matter movement in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
and the ongoing struggle for Indigenous justice in Australia.
Okay. So there are similarities there.
There are.
Interesting.
It's a reminder that the fight for equality and recognition is global.
It is.
What's important is to learn from each other's experiences.
Right.
Both countries have made progress,
Yeah.
but there's still a long way to go.
For sure.
Absolutely. And it's not just race.
Okay.
Wolpe also contrasts approaches to healthcare.
All right.
This is a major point of divergence.
Yeah.
The U.S. has a predominantly private healthcare system,
Yeah.
leading to disparities in access and affordability.
Right.
Australia has Medicare aiming to provide affordable care for all.
Uh-huh. But I imagine that even Medicare has its challenges.
It does. And Wolpe cautions that even Medicare isn't immune to challenges.
Oh, okay.
He highlights the potential for what he calls the Americanization
Oh, wow.
of our healthcare system,
Interesting.
with increasing privatization and out-of-pocket costs.
So kind of going backwards a little bit?
Yeah, potentially.
Wow.
That's definitely something to watch closely.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to protect the principles of universal access and affordability.
Absolutely.
It's a fundamental value we can't take for granted.
Totally.
Now, another critical social issue,
Okay.
reproductive rights,
Hmm.
particularly abortion.
All right.
This is where the contrast between the U.S. and Australia becomes particularly stark.
Okay.
The U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade,
Right.
stripping away the federal right to abortion.
Yeah.
This has created a patchwork of state laws,
Uh-huh.
with some severely restricting or
Right.
banning abortion.
Wow.
It's a devastating blow to women's rights in the U.S.
It is.
And while abortion rights are more secure in Australia,
Okay.
we can't ignore potential spillover effects.
Okay.
Anti-abortion groups in Australia have been emboldened
Right.
by the U.S. Supreme Court decision.
Yeah. Using that as leverage.
And there's a risk they'll push for similar restrictions here.
Oh, wow. So we have to stay vigilant.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a cautionary tale,
It is.
highlighting how quickly hard-won rights can erode.
Yeah. You can never take it for granted.
You can't.
Yeah.
We must remain vigilant and advocate for the policies we believe in.
Absolutely.
Speaking of vigilance, let's discuss the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
Wolpe analyzes both countries' handling of the crisis,
Okay.
highlighting successes and failures.
Okay.
Australia's initial response with strict lockdowns and border closures,
Yeah.
was largely successful in containing the virus.
It seemed to work pretty well.
It did.
Yeah.
However, the vaccine rollout
Right.
faced bureaucratic delays and missteps.
Okay, so not perfect.
Not perfect.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
a good reminder that even the best plans can go awry. And in the U.S., the Trump administration's response
Right.
faced heavy criticism for downplaying the virus
Yeah.
and delivering inconsistent messaging.
Yeah, mixed messages.
It was a chaotic time, and tragically, the U.S. paid a high price and lives lost.
Right, yeah.
And Walt points out that the pandemic exposed deep inequalities in both countries,
Yeah.
particularly in healthcare and support services.
Yeah, makes sense.
It was a wake-up call, revealing vulnerabilities in our social safety nets.
Right, yeah. It showed where the cracks were.
It did.
Sure.
And it underscores the need for greater investment in public health infrastructure
Yeah.
and a more equitable approach to social welfare.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground, from Trump's America First policy
Yeah.
to its potential impact on Australia,
Mm.
both in terms of foreign policy and domestic issues.
Right, so we've looked at
Yeah.
how it affects us,
We get it.
both at home and abroad.
Now, before we delve into the deeper philosophical questions,
Okay.
let's touch on the economy.
All right, so let's talk dollars and cents.
I'll talk money.
Yeah.
Wolpe dives into the potential economic ramifications
Okay.
of a second Trump term,
All right.
and the outlook isn't exactly bright.
Well, yeah, based on his previous term,
Exactly.
you can kind of see where that's going.
He favors protectionist policies,
Right,
tariffs,
right.
and trade wars, which can disrupt global markets
Yeah.
and create business uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure. It's unpredictable.
And remember those tariffs he slapped on Chinese goods?
Oh, yeah.
They had a real impact on Australian exporters.
Right, because we're
Yeah.
kind of in the middle there.
Yeah, exactly.
Caught in the crossfire.
And Wolpe suggests that he might double down
Oh, wow.
on those protectionist measures
Okay.
in his second term,
All right.
putting Australia in a tough spot.
Yeah, like you said earlier,
Yep.
caught in that
Exactly.
economic tug of war.
But it's not just about trade.
Okay.
Wolpe analyzes Trump's broader economic approach,
You're right.
which relies heavily on tax cuts and deregulation,
Okay.
often at the expense of social programs and environmental protections.
Right. So kind of a classic
That's right.
trickle-down approach.
It's a trickle-down economics approach,
Yeah.
which many argue benefits the wealthy
Uh-huh.
at the expense of the middle class and the poor.
Right.
And those policies can have ripple effects globally,
Yeah.
including on our economy.
For sure.
And Wolpe cautions that Australia may face pressure
Okay.
to adopt similar economic policies
Okay.
to remain competitive in a Trump-dominated world.
So do we follow suit or do we stick
but-
to our guns?
Tough choice.
Yeah.
Do we compromise our values for economic gain,
Right.
or do we stand firm
Yeah.
and risk falling behind?
It's a big question.
It's a dilemma many countries will grapple with in the years to come.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of practical stuff.
We have.
But let's get into the deeper, more philosophical questions
Okay.
Wolpe raises about the potential impact
Right.
of a second Trump term on democracy itself.
This is the big one.
This is the big one.
Yeah.
So he digs deeper into the more subtle ways
Yeah.
democracy can be eroded.
Oh.
It's not just about voter suppression
Sure.
or blatant power grabs.
Yeah.
It's about the insidious ways that trust in institutions
Right.
can be undermined.
Okay, so it's almost like a more gradual process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can have all the right laws and structures in place,
Right.
but if people lose faith in the system itself,
Yeah.
democracy is in trouble.
It's all about trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest threats to that trust
Okay.
is the spread of misinformation,
Right.
which can poison public discourse.
Yeah. It's hard to
Mhm.
know what to believe these days.
When people can't agree on basic facts
Yeah.
or trust reliable sources of information,
That's right.
it becomes incredibly difficult
Does.
to have meaningful debates
Yeah.
or make informed decisions.
Absolutely.
It's like we're all living in different realities.
Kinda. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a breeding ground for extremism
Yeah.
and polarization, which further weakens democratic institutions.
Yeah. Right.
And Trump, with his constant attacks on the media
Right.
and his penchant for spreading conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
well, he practically wrote the playbook
Yeah, he did.
on how to exploit those vulnerabilities.
For sure.
And Wolpe argues that even if Trump himself fades from the scene,
Okay.
the forces he unleashed, what we might call Trumpism,
Right.
are still a potent threat
Yeah.
to democracy, not
Yeah.
just in the U.S.,
Uh-huh.
but globally.
So it's like a global movement.
Exactly.
Wow.
Well, what exactly is Trumpism?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is it just a political ideology?
Right.
Or is it something more?
Yeah, is it deeper than that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Okay.
Wolpe suggests it's a combination of factors.
Right.
A deep distrust of institutions,
Okay.
a rejection of expertise,
Uh-huh.
a willingness to embrace authoritarian tactics,
Oh.
and a profound sense of grievance and resentment.
So like a whole mindset.
It's almost like a cultural phenomenon,
Yeah.
not just a political one.
Right. It's like a cultural shift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's worrying is that these sentiments aren't confined to the U.S.
Right.
We're seeing similar trends in Australia and other
yeah.
democracies around the world.
So this is something we need to watch out for.
We do.
Okay.
It's like a virus that's gone global.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And like any virus,
Yeah.
it can mutate and adapt, taking on different forms in different contexts.
Okay.
So if Trumpism
Yeah.
is this global phenomenon,
Yeah.
how do we combat it?
That's the big question.
Is there a vaccine, so to speak?
Right.
Wolpe doesn't offer any easy solutions,
Okay.
but he does highlight some key strategies.
I didn't listen.
One is the importance of strengthening
Okay.
democratic institutions and processes,
Right.
making them more resilient
Yeah.
to manipulation and abuse.
So reinforcing the foundations
Yes.
of democracy.
Okay, that makes sense, but how do we do that in practice?
Yeah. How do we actually do that?
Well, for example, Wupan talks about the need for electoral reforms
Okay.
that make it harder to suppress votes
Right.
or gerrymander districts.
Okay.
He also emphasizes the importance of a free and independent press,
Absolutely.
as well as robust fact-checking
Yeah.
and media literacy initiatives
Okay.
to counter the spread of misinformation.
So giving people the tools
Yeah.
to be critical thinkers.
Exactly. It's about shoring up our defenses,
Uh-huh.
making it harder for those anti-democratic forces
Right.
to gain a foothold.
So playing defense, but also we have to play offense too.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right.
How do we do that?
So how do we play offense?
By actively promoting democratic values and civic engagement,
Right.
by supporting organizations that fight for human rights and social justice, by educating ourselves and others
Right.
about the dangers of authoritarianism
Right.
and the importance of critical thinking.
Yeah. So getting people involved
And
engaged.
It's about fighting for the soul of democracy, not just in our own countries, but around the world.
So it's a global effort.
It is.
Yeah.
And that fight requires a collective effort.
Absolutely.
It's not something governments or institutions can do alone.
Right.
It requires the active participation of citizens
Yeah.
who are willing to stand up for what they believe in.
It's a call to action.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that democracy isn't a spectator sport.
Right.
We all have a role to play in protecting it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the most important takeaways
Yeah.
from Wolpe's book.
Okay.
It's not just a warning about the dangers of Trumpism.
Right.
It's a challenge to all of us to be more engaged, informed citizens.
For sure.
And that's a challenge we can't afford to ignore.
Definitely not.
Now, before we wrap up,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier,
All right.
the U.S.-Australia alliance.
Okay. Yeah, let's go back to that.
Wolpe suggests that this alliance could be tested like never before
Oh, wow.
under a second Trump term.
Okay.
And it's not just because of Trump's personality
Right.
or his America First policies.
Yeah.
It's also because of the broader shift
Uh-huh.
in the global balance of power.
Okay, so there's a lot.
There is. We're talking about the rise of China, right?
Exactly.
China's growing economic and military might
Yeah.
is challenging the established world order,
Uh-huh.
and that's creating new tensions and uncertainties.
Right.
And Australia, caught between its long-standing alliance with the U.S.
Yeah.
and its economic ties to China.
Right.
Well, we're in a delicate position.
Definitely.
And Wolpe argues that we need to be prepared
Okay.
to navigate these choppy waters
Right.
with a clear sense of our own national interests.
So figuring out where we stand
Exactly.
and what we want.
So what does that look like in practice?
Yeah. How do we do that?
Do we have to choose sides between the U.S. and China?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Yeah.
Wolpe doesn't think it's that simple.
Okay.
He suggests that Australia needs to pursue a more nuanced
Right.
and independent foreign policy,
Okay.
one that prioritizes our own security and prosperity while maintaining strong relationships
Okay.
with both the U.S. and China.
So it's about finding that balance.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like walking a tightrope,
Yeah. It is.
but it's a tightrope we have to walk.
we do.
We can't afford to be naive about the challenges we face,
Right.
but we also can't allow ourselves to be drawn into unnecessary conflicts.
Absolutely.
It's about finding that balance that sweet spot where we can protect our interests
Right.
without compromising our values.
That's the goal.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge.
Yeah.
That will require careful diplomacy, strategic thinking,
Yeah.
and a willingness to make tough choices.
For sure.
It's a reminder that we're living in a complex and rapidly changing world.
It is a crazy time.
It is. And there are no easy answers.
No, there are not.
But that's what makes this discussion so important.
It is.
We need to be having these conversations, grappling with these complex issues, and working together to find solutions.
It's the only way forward.
Because the stakes couldn't be higher.
They couldn't.
We're talking about the future of democracy.
Right.
The stability of the global order.
Yeah.
And the well-being of our planet.
Oh, wow. So it's pretty big.
No pressure, right?
No pressure at all.
But in all seriousness, I think Wolpe's book serves as a wake-up call.
It does.
It's a reminder that we can't take our freedoms or our way of life for granted.
Right.
We have to be vigilant, engaged, and willing to fight for what we believe in. And that's a fight we can't afford to lose.
We can't.
Now, I know we've been focused on the big picture here, global trends and all that. But I want to zoom in on something specific.
Yeah.
Wolpe highlights that really struck me.
Okay. What is that?
The role of the individual.
Oh, interesting.
Well, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by these massive forces.
Yeah.
Globalization, technological change, the rise of authoritarianism.
It can feel like you're just one person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can make you feel like your individual actions don't really matter.
Absolutely.
But Wolpe argues that individual actions, however small they may seem, can have a ripple effect.
Okay, so like the butterfly effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He gives the example of voting.
Okay.
In the U.S., where voting is not mandatory.
Right.
Many people feel like their vote doesn't really count.
Yeah, especially with the Electoral College.
Right.
Yeah.
But Wolpe points out that even in a system like that, every vote matters.
Especially in close elections.
Yeah.
Where a few thousand votes can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about voting. It's about being informed, engaging in respectful dialogue, holding our leaders accountable, and supporting organizations that align with our values.
So being an active citizen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that democracy is a participatory process.
Right.
It requires all of us to be active and engaged, not just during elections, but every single day.
Every day.
It's about making our voices heard.
Absolutely.
Both individually and collectively.
So speaking up and getting involved.
And that's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially in these uncertain times.
It is a powerful message.
It is a reminder that we're not powerless.
Right.
We can make a difference.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of making a difference, Wolpe doesn't just talk about the individual's role in protecting democracy.
Right. He also explores how individuals can contribute to a more just and equitable society.
Okay, I'm curious, what are some of the examples he gives?
Well, he talks about the importance of speaking out against injustice, whether it's racism, sexism, or any other form of discrimination.
Right, so calling it out.
Exactly.
I see it.
It's about being an ally.
Yeah.
Standing up for those who are marginalized or oppressed.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about words.
Okay.
It's about actions.
So what can people actually do?
Like supporting organizations that are working to make a difference. Volunteering our time, or donating to causes we believe in.
So putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about putting our values into action, making a tangible difference in the world.
Right, like actually making a difference, not just talking about it.
And that's something we can all do.
It is.
Regardless of our background or circumstances.
Yeah, everyone can contribute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know we've been talking a lot about the challenges we face.
Yeah, we have.
But I want to end on a more hopeful note.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Despite all the doom and gloom we hear these days, Wolpe believes there's still reason for optimism.
Okay, I'm listening. Why is he optimistic?
Because he's seen firsthand the resilience of the human spirit.
Okay.
He's witnessed people coming together to overcome incredible obstacles.
Right.
He's seen progress being made even in the face of adversity.
That's a powerful reminder.
It is.
Yeah, it's easy to lose sight of that.
It is easy to get discouraged when we focus only on the negative.
Right.
But it's important to remember that there's good in the world.
Yeah.
And there are people who are fighting to make it a better place.
Absolutely. There are good people out there doing good things.
Exactly. And we can be part of that fight.
We can
choose to be hopeful.
Yeah.
To be engaged and to work towards a better future.
And that's a choice worth making.
It is.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, we've been talking a lot about the potential downsides.
Yeah, we have.
But like you said, expert speaker,
Yeah.
there's always the possibility of unexpected outcomes.
Right. You don't know what's going to happen.
Maybe a second Trump term, with all its risks, could inadvertently spark positive change.
That's an interesting thought. Sometimes crises force us to adapt and innovate in ways we never anticipated.
Exactly. What if it compels Australia to become more self-reliant?
Okay.
More innovative.
Yeah.
And more determined to forge its own path on the global stage.
It's a thought-provoking idea.
It is.
Could the challenges posed by a second Trump presidency push Australia to reassess its priorities and strengthen its position in the world?
It's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
This deep dive isn't just about Trump or America.
Okay.
It's about Australia's place in the world.
Right.
The choices we face.
Yeah.
And the future we want to create.
It's about us.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation that all Australians need to be a part of. We can't just sit back and wait to see what happens.
No.
We need to be actively engaged in shaping our own future.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into what Trump's second term means for Australia, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
The book focuses on the potential challenges.
Right.
But history is full of unexpected turns.
It is.
We can't predict the future with certainty.
No, we can't.
But we can learn from the past, analyze the present, and make informed decisions about the path we want to take.
So using the information we have to make the best decisions.
And that brings us back to the role of the individual.
Okay.
We might feel powerless in the face of global events.
Right.
But our choices, our actions, they all contribute to shaping the future.
They do.
It's like that famous quote.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
We can't afford to be complacent.
Right.
A passive.
We got to get involved.
We need to be active, engaged citizens who are willing to stand up for our values and make our voices heard.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's something we can all do, regardless of our political beliefs or our background.
Yeah, everyone.
We can vote, we can volunteer, we can support organizations that are working to make a difference.
Yeah.
We can have conversations with our friends and family about the issues that matter to us.
So it's about getting involved on all those different levels.
It is.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're all part of a larger community.
Absolutely.
And that our actions have an impact on others.
They do, for sure.
Even small acts of kindness or courage can make a difference.
It all adds up.
It does.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this.
No, we're not.
We're all in this together.
We are.
And together we can create a future that's more more equitable and more sustainable.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
And on that note, I think it's time we turn the conversation over to our listeners.
I agree. What are your thoughts on the potential impact of a second Trump term?
Yeah.
Both for the U.S. and for Australia. Are there any silver linings you see?
Yeah.
Any concerns that keep you up at night?
Head down to the comments and share your biggest takeaway from this deep dive.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
We're eager to hear your perspective.
And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating and timely topics. We'll see you next time.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into what Trump's second term means for Australia.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating discussion.
It really has, and I think Wolpe does a brilliant job.
He does.
Of laying out the potential challenges and opportunities that Australia faces in a world where Trump returns to the White House.
He doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
He doesn't.
And that's what makes it so valuable. It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths.
Right. About ourselves and the world we live in.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that the future isn't predetermined.
No.
It's shaped by the choices we make.
It is.
Both individually and collectively.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have the power to create the future we want.
We do.
But it's not going to happen by accident.
Right.
It requires us to be informed, engaged, and active citizens.
Absolutely.
And that's a message that I hope resonates with our listeners.
I hope so, too.
We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix things.
No.
We all have a role to play in shaping the future of our country and our world.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah, I agree.
So before we sign off, I want to thank you, expert speaker.
Oh, thank you.
For sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure.
And for helping us unpack this complex and thought-provoking book.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It is, and a huge thank you to all of you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you everyone for listening.
We love having you along for the ride. We do.
And we appreciate your support.
Absolutely.
Your questions, comments, and feedback are what make this show so rewarding for us.
They do.
So please, keep them coming.
Keep them coming.
Tell us what you thought of this episode.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway?
Right. Did anything surprise you?
Yeah, what questions do you still have?
Yeah.
Head down to the comments and let us know.
Yeah, let's keep this conversation going.
And while you're there, don't forget to hit that like button.
Yes.
And subscribe to our channel for more deep dives.
Yes.
Into fascinating and timely topics.
We've got a lot more coming.
We do. We're dropping new episodes every week.
Every week.
So stay tuned. Until next time.
Yes.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep the conversation going.
See you next time.